Hello, how are you feeling today? And from which part of the world are you joining us? In today's video, we will explore what has long been considered forbidden and mysterious: sexual energy as a spiritual force. Did you know that this very energy is the most intimate and at the same time the most powerful gift of the human being? What many believe to be taboo is, in truth, the key to hidden practices carefully protected from ordinary eyes. And what if this source alone could draw love, harmony, and the fulfillment of your deepest desires into your life? Allow me to reveal the beginning of this mystery. Listen closely, for everything begins right here. From the very dawn of human history, there was a force spoken of only in whispers. It could not be weighed on scales or seen with the eyes, yet everyone felt it within themselves. Ancient shamans and sages called it the sacred flame, burning in the heart and the body, uniting the earthly with the celestial. It was not a mere instinct. It was breath transformed into light, a guiding fire through the journey of life. Sexual energy was never regarded as a simple bodily desire. It was the fire that ignited inner vision and opened hidden doors of consciousness. Legends from many cultures spoke of this flame as granting not only pleasure, but also insight. Some saw it as the spark of the gods, others as the earth's current rising toward the heavens. But all agreed, it was the beginning of every movement, every passion, every search. Imagine the ancient fire around which people once gathered. It gave warmth, light in the darkness, and protection from the wild. Yet it was more than survival. They saw in that flame a mirror of the fire within. They knew that if the inner flame went out, a person lost not only the desire to live, but also the ability to dream, to create, to love. That is why fire became sacred, preserved, passed on, and celebrated. Sexual energy was inseparable from this archetype of fire. An archetype is an inner guiding image, understandable to anyone even without words. And the archetype of fire spoke of a force awakening the hidden potentials of the soul. This energy lifted a person from inertia and guided them to discoveries. It allowed them to perceive the invisible, hear the unheard, and touch the unknown. Yet alongside reverence, there was always fear. People knew that fire could warm, but it could also destroy. Thus, sexual energy was seen as both a source of light and a danger requiring wisdom. It could lead to harmony or devastation, depending on how one tended its flame. The sages taught that sexual energy is a doorway into depth. If a person channels it only into external pleasures, they remain on the surface. But if they learn to hold the fire within, transforming it into radiance of spirit, their life becomes infused with awareness. Across millennia, this gave rise to secret practices of breath, contemplation, and inner movement of energy. That is why sacred symbols emerged across cultures. In India, this flame was linked with Kundalini, the coiled serpent sleeping at the base of the spine. In Egypt, it was the solar disk, radiating warmth and life. Among native tribes, it was the great spark uniting earth and sky. The symbols differed, yet the essence was one. Within every person burns a torch upon which destiny depends. We may have forgotten the fires of antiquity, but the flame within us still lives. It awakens the heart when we meet love. It propels us forward when inspiration is born. It gives strength when all seems lost. Sexual energy is this ancient fire, forever ready to renew a human being. Allow yourself to hear the whisper of this flame. It speaks quietly, but with clarity. It reminds you, within burns a power older than civilizations and wiser than words. Listen to it, and you will open the door to harmony and inner light. Within every human being flows an invisible current, moving as surely as breath or blood. This current cannot be grasped with hands, yet it can be felt across the skin, like a warm breeze rising from within. Sexual energy becomes a special magnetism, able to draw people, events, and even circumstances toward us, as if life itself turns in our direction. This magnetism is not outer sorcery. It needs no spells or rituals. It arises from the very nature of being human, like the light of a candle in a dark room. When one becomes aware of their inner strength, their presence begins to shape space. Others sense it unconsciously. Words gain depth, the gaze softens with warmth, gestures grow steadier. A person acquires a gravity of their own, in which body, spirit, and intention unite. Imagine the surface of water touched by a drop. Ripples spread outward, touching everything around. So too, awakened and conscious, sexual energy creates waves that extend far beyond the body. These waves carry messages of who we are and what we seek, and so life begins to respond. The right encounters appear, unexpected opportunities unfold, hidden paths reveal themselves. At the heart of this process lies no random mystery. Sexual energy serves as the bridge between inner and outer. It unites the soul's longing with the motion of the world. When a person lives in harmony with their inner flame, they tune a string, and the entire universe begins to resonate in harmony. This inner magnetism neither deceives nor betrays. It always mirrors the true state within. Yet the strength of this magnetism requires awareness. If chaos and fear dwell inside, one's pull will create the same patterns in the outer world. They will see only reflections of their own uncertainty. But once energy is guided toward creation and clarity, the environment shifts. Magnetism is a mirror showing what we carry within, returning it magnified. Sages taught that strengthening inner magnetism requires attentive presence. When one learns to be here and now, energy ceases to drain into past or future. It gathers into wholeness, like light focused into a single beam. Such a person becomes the center around which reality begins to turn, not because they command the world, but because they themselves have become harmonious and whole. Sexual energy in this sense is like breathing. It is always there, but its depth depends on how much we are aware of its flow. When breathing is shallow, only a fraction of its power is felt. But when it becomes full, life takes on new colors. So too with magnetism. The more carefully we attend to our inner energy, the brighter it shines. This is why some people pass unnoticed, while others radiate presence without speaking a word. It is not determined by appearance or status. It depends on how they carry their energy, whether they can hold it and transform it into light. Sexual energy, once recognized and embraced, always becomes an inner radiance visible to others. Allow yourself to feel this current. It is already within you. It has always been there. All it takes is to pause, listen to the silence between words, and notice how the body itself becomes a magnet. This magnetism asks for no effort. It simply unfolds when one chooses to be authentic. Sexual energy always carries within it a choice. It is like a river that may flow gently, giving life to everything around, or break its banks and become a destructive torrent. It is up to the individual to decide its course. And upon this choice depends whether it becomes a source of inspiration and love, or turns into chaos and inner bondage. When energy is suppressed, it ceases to be a pure flame and turns into smoke. Such a person feels irritation, accumulates anger, and loses clarity of thought. Suppressed flow seeks an outlet and often finds it in addictions, in pursuit of empty pleasures, or in aggression. This energy, deprived of a creative channel, becomes a heavy burden pressing from within. But if one opens the ability to live it consciously, sexual energy becomes a source of higher power. It transforms into inspiration that gives birth to new ideas. It awakens love, turning it into an expansion of the heart rather than mere attachment. It becomes the basis of creativity. The artist turns it into paintings, the musician into sound, the philosopher into thoughts, and the ordinary person into kind deeds. The sages of old taught, there are two paths of power. The first is the path of ego, when energy serves only personal gain and pleasure. This path is like a bonfire into which everything is thrown. It burns brightly, but quickly dies, leaving only ash. The second path is the way of spirit, when energy is directed toward creation and harmony. Such a fire is tended with care. It shines steadily and gives warmth to others. Sexual energy is never neutral. It is always moving somewhere. Responsibility therefore rests with each of us to choose destruction or creation, chaos or harmony. The choice is not made once, but is renewed daily, in thoughts, words, and actions. Every day, one decides which way the inner current will flow. Imagine a tree growing in the sunlight. If its roots are in poisoned soil, it bears no fruit. But if the ground is pure, the tree flourishes, offering shade, blossoms, and nourishment. Sexual energy is like this tree. It absorbs everything with which we feed it. If we nourish it with envy and fear, it yields bitterness. If we fill it with clarity and love, it blossoms with strength that inspires and heals. On the spiritual path, one faces this choice again and again. Sometimes the energy leads to trials where temptation outweighs the inner light. Yet in such moments, the depth is revealed. Can the flame be kept pure, or will it consume what is precious? These trials become turning points, shaping the soul's maturity. And still at the core lies a simple truth. Sexual energy is a gift. A gift may be wasted, misused, or turned into a source of creation. The power of this choice reminds us, we are not slaves to our impulses, we are the guardians of our inner fire. Allow yourself to see these two paths clearly. One leads into darkness and a closed circle of suffering. The other opens the way to light and creation. The decision is always in your hands. The true power of sexual energy is revealed not in its expenditure, but in the ability to hold and direct its flow. Like water that may slip through fingers or gather into a clear lake, energy requires focus and care. It is not meant to vanish in chaotic surges. Its purpose is to be preserved, transformed, and used for inner growth. The sages of the past understood. If one scatters this power without control, they lose the source that could sustain their life. Thus, across cultures, arose practices of breathing, meditation, and contemplation aimed at keeping the inner flame alive. Each inhalation became an act of gathering strength, each exhalation a gentle distribution of it. Breath turned into a bridge between body and spirit. Retention of energy is not suppression. Suppression creates tension, like a river blocked by a dam that will one day burst. Retention is the art of allowing energy to flow while guiding it into the right channel. It is the transformation of the fire of desire into the light of inspiration. Much like a musician turns noise into melody, or a painter transforms chaos of colors into harmony of form. Imagine the flame of a candle in a room without drafts. It burns steadily, offering warmth and light. But placed in the wind, it flickers and fades. So it is with sexual energy. When we learn to hold it in the stillness of inner awareness, it shines evenly, illuminating each step. If left to chance and chaos, the fire weakens and scatters. Ancient masters taught that retention begins with simple steps: attentive breathing, listening to the body, the ability to hear one's own heart. They knew that the moment a person becomes master of their inner rhythm, energy ceases to dominate and begins to serve. In that moment, space opens for conscious choice, for a power that creates rather than destroys. The modern human may forget these truths, yet they remain timeless. Retention of energy is expressed in the capacity not to spill oneself into trivialities, in the ability to maintain inner composure. When we preserve the flame, it becomes fuel for work, creativity, and relationships. This power turns into resilience, depth, and confidence that cannot be imitated. Sexual energy is the breath of life, and retaining it means honoring one's own nature. It is an invitation to be attentive to every moment, every movement within, not to rush in squandering strength, but to allow it to ripen, like seed that in time becomes harvest. Allow yourself to feel this rhythm. Inhalation as the receiving of power, exhalation as its gentle distribution. Allow the fire to burn steadily, never losing its depth. This is the art of retention, not to lose the light, but to turn it into radiance that sustains and inspires. To convey the mystery of sexual energy, humanity has always turned to imagery. Words alone seemed too direct, too vulnerable, but metaphors allowed the sacred to be expressed through the language of nature, understood by everyone. Thus, symbols arose, accompanying spiritual teachings for centuries. Fire was among the first and most central images. It revealed a force that warms and illuminates, yet may burn and destroy. Sexual energy was understood as flame, requiring careful tending. Fire said, "If you care for me, I will give warmth and light. If you neglect me, I will turn to ash and leave you in cold." Water became another symbol. Its fluidity reminded us that energy finds its path even when blocked. It may be a gentle stream or a raging torrent. Water spoke of the energy's power to cleanse, to wash away what is unnecessary, to bring life where emptiness reigned. It taught that strength lies not in resistance, but in flowing without losing essence. The serpent, too, was a symbol of this force. Across cultures, it represented hidden energy, coiled deep within the human being. Its upward movement symbolized awakening and transformation. Yet the same serpent could bring danger if the energy was misused. This image taught, what is hidden may become either poison or medicine, depending on our approach. Symbols helped people grasp the unseen through the seen. They turned inner experiences into images that could be understood without explanation. When a teacher spoke of water, the student recalled rivers and rain. When he spoke of flame, the student envisioned a fire. Thus metaphors became bridges between daily experience and spiritual depth. Even today, these images remain alive. A person who says their heart burns with fire describes precisely this inner power. One who feels emotions flowing like a river experiences energy in motion. One who senses awakening like a serpent uncoiling within them touches an ancient archetype of transformation. Sexual energy as a universal force cannot be confined to one image. That is why sages employed many symbols to reveal its different facets. Fire taught responsibility. Water reminded of adaptability. The serpent pointed to depth and hidden potential. Together, these metaphors formed a map leading toward awareness. It is essential to remember, a symbol is not the energy itself, but its reflection. It shows the direction, but it is not the destination. True meaning unfolds only when one begins to live this power within. Allow yourself to see in each symbol a reflection of your own path. In fire, your passion and responsibility. In water, your capacity to be fluid and alive. In the serpent, your potential for renewal and growth. Let these images become keys, helping to unlock the depth inside you. Sexual energy, like every great force, requires a language through which it can be directed. One of the most ancient and effective tools has been the mantra. It is not merely sound, but a vibration capable of altering the current of inner flow. When one chants a mantra, they not only hear the sound, but allow body and spirit to merge into a single rhythm. A mantra works like a stone thrown into water. It creates ripples that spread further and further. These waves transform not only the state of mind, but the very atmosphere around. Energy begins to move in greater order, as if a chaotic stream has become a river finding its course. Sexual energy, touched by mantra, becomes softer and purer, opening new horizons of perception. The vibration of sound reaches deeper than it seems. It touches not only the ear, but every cell of the body. Sages said that sound is the primal foundation of existence, and so it penetrates where words cannot. When mantra is spoken with intention, it becomes a key unlocking the door to transformation. Intention and sound unite, and energy shifts direction, becoming a conduit of harmony. The practice of mantras requires no special conditions. It is available to anyone ready to pause and listen to the silence between words. One need only choose a sound or short phrase resonant with their inner state, repeating it gently but firmly. Over time, repetition becomes a flow, and flow becomes a habit. Then the energy that once scattered begins to gather into wholeness. Imagine mantra as a musical instrument tuning the body. Just as a musician selects notes to make melody ring true, so a person uses mantra to tune their energy. Each repetition brings them back to center, reminding them of the inner flame. Gradually, body and spirit sound in unison, and this rhythm becomes the foundation of new strength. In ancient traditions, special sounds were passed from teacher to student. They were considered sacred because they carried the vibration of the source itself. Yet, it is vital to understand. Mantra is not the magic of words, but the state with which one speaks them. Even simple breathing may become mantra when filled with attention and love. Sexual energy is especially sensitive to vibration. It is like a string that resonates at the touch of sound. When filled with mantra, energy ceases to be chaotic and becomes creative. It no longer drives restlessness, but lifts the person into harmony. The practice of mantras teaches that every sound may be a doorway if spoken with awareness. A doorway to cleansing, to order, to inner clarity. And the longer one walks this path, the purer their magnetism becomes, the brighter their inner light shines. Allow yourself to hear your own voice, even if it is only a whisper. Allow sound to move through the body like a wave washing away anxiety and leaving clarity. This is the power of mantra. It makes sexual energy an ally, not an enemy, light, not shadow. The body has always been more than a vessel for life. It is a temple where power is born and where sexual energy takes form. Every movement, every gesture, every breath becomes ritual when lived with awareness. Here, in living matter, the light of spirit reveals itself, and energy becomes the bridge linking the unseen to the seen. When one sees the body as a mere mechanism, half of their potential is lost. But when viewed as a temple, it becomes clear. Every cell is filled with wisdom. Sexual energy, awakened in the body, enlivens it. Movements grow smoother, posture more confident, the gaze deeper. The body becomes a conduit through which spirit expresses itself in the world. Spirit gives this energy direction and meaning. Without it, energy is a powerful current without purpose, like a river without banks. But when spirit unites with body, the flow gains a course. Desire becomes not destruction, but creation. The human being feels whole rather than fragmented, and this wholeness opens new horizons of perception. Imagine a dance where the body moves freely, yet an invisible rhythm guides it. So too with sexual energy, it dances within us, while spirit is the melody setting direction. Body and spirit join to create harmony that can be felt not only by the individual, but by all around them. Different traditions describe this state in different ways. Taoist teachings spoke of the union of yin and yang, harmony of dual forces in the body. Indian texts spoke of the union of Shakti and Shiva, energy and consciousness. Christian mysticism compared it to the marriage of soul and breath. Yet the essence was always the same. Body and spirit are inseparable, and their union reveals human greatness. Sexual energy is the thread binding these two principles. If it is broken, the body loses depth and spirit loses means of expression. But if it flows freely and consciously, one feels a harmony extending into every area of life. Thoughts become clearer, feelings gentler, actions steadier. Such unity opens the door to new levels of perception. One begins to notice beauty where once there was only routine. They hear music in silence, feel light even in darkness. This is no illusion, but the awakening of the ability to perceive the world more widely, more deeply, more fully. Allow yourself to see the body as a temple and the spirit as the flame illuminating it. Allow energy to flow between them, binding earth and sky. In this connection, harmony is born, requiring no effort. It simply is, like breath, like morning light, like the silence that sustains all things. Sexual energy is not merely an impulse of desire. At its depth, it manifests as a universal force of destiny, capable of shaping the course of life. It is like a thread stretched through time and space, weaving past, present, and future into a single flow. One who awakens to this gift realizes that their path is not random. It is woven from the energies they themselves awaken. When energy is alive, perception of time shifts. It ceases to be linear and becomes a living circle. In this circle, everything is connected. Yesterday's thought creates tomorrow's opportunity. Today's choice echoes in the distant future. Sexual energy becomes the tool linking one to their true purpose. It reminds us that we do not merely walk the road of destiny. We create it with each breath and movement. This force also opens new views of space. Boundaries that once seemed impenetrable dissolve. Suddenly the world expands, walls vanish, horizons emerge. Energy brings a sense of freedom, showing that everything around may change if the inner state changes first. Imagine a key that opens countless doors. Each door is an event, an encounter, an opportunity. When energy is chaotic, it is as though one holds a ring of rusted keys, not knowing which might fit. But when energy is gathered and directed, it becomes a golden key fitting every lock. Thus, sexual energy becomes a universal instrument for shaping the future. The sages said, "Destiny is neither punishment nor reward, but a mirror. It reflects what we carry within. If fear and doubt fill the heart, the path will be full of obstacles. If clarity and love reside within, the road becomes smooth and harmonious." Sexual energy magnifies this process. It turns the inner into a magnet, drawing the outer. Yet destiny's power does not mean predetermination. On the contrary, it unveils possibility. One may remain in cycles of suffering or step into the light. One may let energy pull them downward into a closed labyrinth or direct it upward toward freedom. In this choice, maturity is revealed. Destiny is not what happens to us, but what we create from our own energy. Sexual energy becomes the key to destiny when we cease to treat it as a random surge. It is not a storm, but a wind that fills the sails and carries us toward the right shore. It is not chaos, but a force that may order life. One must simply hold this key consciously, knowing its value and using it for what truly matters to the soul. Allow yourself to feel this power. Imagine each thought, each movement as a thread from which the fabric of your destiny is woven. Sense how energy within you opens doors once locked. And know this: destiny does not arrive from outside. It is born in the fire that burns within. Every great force is tested by temptation. Sexual energy is no exception. It can lift the soul to radiance, yet it can also lead into darkness if one yields to its lures. These trials do not come by accident. They test our maturity, depth, and clarity of choice. Temptation arises where energy is strongest. It may take the form of lust for power, hunger for recognition, or the pursuit of pleasure for its own sake. At first glance, these appear harmless. Yet if energy flows in that direction, it ceases to create and begins to destroy. Like fire consuming everything around it, energy turns into chaos. But temptation is not the enemy. It is a mirror showing what within us is still unconscious. It reminds us that as long as we are vulnerable to outer lures, our energy does not fully belong to us. It is steered by foreign images, foreign desires, foreign will. To pass the trial is to reclaim power and learn to master it. Ancient teachings declared, sexual energy is like a sword. In the hands of a warrior of light, it protects, but in the hands of one driven by ego, it becomes a weapon of destruction. Trials of temptation decide who we become, a warrior creating harmony or a captive of our own weakness. Imagine a garden filled with fruit-bearing trees. If one does not tend it, weeds arrive and drain the earth's strength. So too with energy. Untended, temptation takes root and displaces the pure. But if one learns to discern weeds from fruit, their garden becomes a source of abundance. Temptation often disguises itself as the easy path. Quick pleasures promise fulfillment, but leave emptiness. Power grants the illusion of strength, but steals true freedom. Recognition by others brings brief joy, but fades faster than a candle flame. Only one who discerns these traps can channel energy toward creation. The trial of temptation is an initiation every soul undergoes. It teaches us to distinguish light and shadow within. It reminds us, weaknesses cannot be outrun, but they can be transformed into strength. When one meets temptation face to face and chooses the path of love, clarity, and creation, energy is purified and grows even stronger. It is in these moments that spiritual maturity forms. Without trials, one cannot become whole. Temptation reveals the depth, and choice sets the direction. It is not punishment, but opportunity, the chance to prove to oneself that inner strength is greater than passing impulses. Allow yourself to see in each temptation a lesson, not an enemy, not an obstacle, but a teacher. Allow the energy within you to pass through trial, preserving its warmth and light. Then sexual energy ceases to be chaotic fire and becomes a torch illuminating your way. Every power is given to humanity for a reason. Sexual energy is no exception. It arrives as a gift that may be squandered, misused, or transformed into a tool of creation. Conscious use of this energy is the crown of maturity, for it unites respect for the body, wisdom of the spirit, and depth of the soul. Wise use begins with understanding its true nature. It is not only attraction or passion, it is the source of life, the breath of the universe, manifest in every person. When we cease to see it as forbidden or dangerous, we unlock the possibility of employing it for harmony. It becomes a force nourishing love, strengthening creativity, and helping to shape the future. It is vital to remember, energy always flows where attention goes. If attention is scattered, energy drains into emptiness. But if attention is focused, energy becomes light, illuminating the way. Wise use means directing it toward places where it bears fruit. It is like a gardener tending the soil, knowing that every seed planted with love will one day yield harvest. The sages of old taught that sexual energy can be the greatest weapon of destruction or the most powerful source of light. Everything depends on how it is used. A person driven by ego turns it into dependency, jealousy, hunger for power. But one walking the path of awareness transforms it into the foundation for creation, inspiration, and spiritual growth. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. It may erode banks, flood homes, and destroy life. But with channels built to guide its course, it irrigates fields, enriches soil, and brings water to living beings. So it is with sexual energy. Without conscious direction, it destroys, but guided rightly, it becomes the source of life and abundance. Wise use does not mean denial or suppression. It means listening to its movement, respecting its power, and guiding it where it brings good. It means using it for love, not for ego, for inspiration, not addiction, for creation, not destruction. In this way, energy becomes an ally of the soul. No longer chaotic fire, it turns into light that leads. No longer a hidden threat, it becomes support. When one learns to wield this power, they gain confidence, inner freedom, and the ability to shape destiny. The wise use of sexual energy is the art of choice. Every day we decide where our current will flow, into anger or kindness, into greed or generosity, into destruction or creation. This choice shapes not only our future, but the very fabric of reality around us. Allow yourself to treat this energy as light entrusted to you. Let it become fuel for love, foundation for creativity, and source of inspiration. Then life itself will answer in kind. It will bring not what fear demands, but what the soul truly needs.